Boop boop. Oh, hey. This is maybe working now. Oh, this is loud. Let's see. Hi. I know how to live stream. Hello. There's nobody. Great. Perfect. Susan, if you are still around and I have scared you half to death. Let's see. Nope. Because. Great. I'm doing great. Okay. Cool. This is very confusing, guys. Like, oh, there's some people. Hello, people. Hi. I am very, very confused by this. Oh dear, oh dear. Okay. Cool. So, hello. Hi, I'm Claire. This is the first, maybe monthly, I don't know, State of the Claire live stream. I just wanted to take a little bit of time to, talk to everybody and just do a whole bunch of things that I haven't had time to do. So you might have noticed that I haven't done any reading wrap-ups this year on the channel, and that's just because I've not really had time to do them. So I wanted to tell you about what I've been reading this year, what I'm currently watching. Try to move the light so that it's not as bad, but it's still kind of bad, so sorry about that. It does not look great on OBS, so very sorry. So yeah, this is just meant to be kind of a chill chat, sit down, enjoy. I do have a cup of tea actually. I had it to the side, but yeah. Yeah, just kind of hang out and talk about books. So now that I've completely botched the introduction, because quite frankly I was a bit frazzled because OBS is scary. I know I've been live streaming with John for years at this point, but I never handle the technical side of things, and I know the technical side of things for many other things, but not for live streaming, so that is always a little bit intimidating to me, especially since last time I had a technical issue with the live stream. I just ended up not being able to stream at all, and we had to move channels, so just a little bit worrisome. I'm gonna actually tweet about the stream being live now, because I forgot to do that. Well done me. So if you give me a second, I'll do that now. But yeah, people, just please introduce yourself in chat. I've got chat right here on my computer, so I should be able to see that. Unless, I don't know, maybe it's not. Let me see. I'm just gonna try and see if maybe chat is going on somewhere else where I can't see it, but that doesn't seem right from my experience. Streaming elsewhere. Let's see. Nope. Okay. So, huh. I don't know if I used the wrong go live now thing, because now obviously it's giving me two different live streams on my... Why is it doing that? Jesus. Sorry. YouTube is fun. YouTube is really fun. Never any issues with YouTube, eh? It definitely is showing 2 different live streams, which, like, I don't know. I just click start streaming now on OBS, which is what it asked me to do. And now, obviously, it looks different, so... Never mind. I guess this is fine. Okay, cool. What? Does it have disabled chat? What is this nonsense? Just bear with me a second. Goodness me, I was wondering where people were. What is this bullshit? Okay. Events. Dashboard. That's a thing I know how to use, is the dashboard for a live stream. I mean, clearly, I know how to use it, because it's told me that I couldn't... This is nonsense. Oh, great. And there's me squishing my nose on the playback. This is great. This is amazing content, alright? By the way, I did quite a bit of research. Like, I watched a bunch of videos on how to do this and how to make sure to do it properly. But as with YouTube, in general, like every other... How do I enable chat? There we go. So now that we've had a little rant about YouTube, which is, you know, very... I've got John in my DMs telling me how I'm failing at technical live stream. I mean, you know, he's not being bad about it. He's just telling me the issue that I'm spotting myself right now, which is great. So anyway, now that the chat exists and is a thing that we can all use so that I'm not here on my own, do tell me how things are going. What are you reading? What are you watching? Yay! Hi, Sophie! I was just kind of like, is it just that people don't care about my live stream? Or did I in fact mess up which live stream it was and then disabled chat somehow? Anyway, never mind. Hello, Anna. I'm gonna pull up the plan that I actually made for this live stream a little while back. Believe it or not, there was a plan. Hello, hello, Rhett. Yes. Thank you. Oh dear, oh dear. Oh, everything is a lot right now. Okay. So just a little insight into how I work and plan things is, I know I took notes for this live stream, right? But I'm fairly sure I took them in a separate document where I planned some changes for my Patreon account. So of course I don't have, like, you know, an easy to reach. There we go. It's at the bottom of a different document, unlabeled, because that's the easy way to do things. Okay. Are my plans as terrifying as John's, says that 50 guy? I make a lot more plans, I think, than John does, because John's very good at having an idea in his head and kind of like visualizing it and then just starting straight away and pulling it off, whereas I tend to need a lot of time to get started with things, and then it's just, yeah, it's I tend to have trouble, yeah, just starting with stuff. So I make a lot of plans. This is just a bullet point list, to be honest. Who do we have? Hi, Shades of Orange. I don't look French. Well, I mean, I'm very pale, so I don't know if that's a French or a British thing, but I'm very pale, and I sunburn quite a lot, and also obviously this just is, you know, weird as opposed to looking any specific like nationality or not. Thomas, you were at the other live stream. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I looked into it. I thought I had set it up right, but clearly OBS had other ideas, so there you go. I'm just gonna tweet about the change of live stream and make sure that I have the right one when I do let people know about it. There we go. YouTube messed up again. I'm just gonna blame somebody else, not me. People will believe it. It's very believable. Actually, there we go. There we go. Okay, so the first thing that I did want to talk about is what I'm reading, watching, and playing now. So, I mean, actually, it's mostly going to be reading and watching because I have fallen in some fandom pits recently. I've mentioned on Twitter recently, and it is still holding up, that I've been reading a lot of Game of Thrones fanfiction, and I mean, we'll get onto like thoughts about the ending of Game of Thrones in a little bit, because my lovely patrons voted for me to talk about the ending of Game of Thrones and the ending of Avengers. You know, Avengers Endgame is not that it's really an ending, but you know, that's something we're going to touch on. But what I've been reading right now is a lot of Jamie Brienne fanfiction, because there is a lot of lovely fic out there, and that's the kind of like the thing that to me felt the most egregious, almost, in the way that it's been like all the rest of it. I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess if it happens in the books, it will just be set up better and it'll work the way that it, you know, George R. R. Martin will somehow make it work because his writing is actually good as opposed to the people making the show. So, you know, I can kind of believe almost everything else. I'm like, yeah, you know, Matt Daenerys, like, they've not really been setting it up properly, but they had some groundwork that they could have worked with if they'd wanted to. But, like, the Jamie thing, to me, did not make any sense at all. Like, it just really, that's the one thing that I'm like, really, I hope that's not how it ends in the books, because it would, you know, not only is the death just like boring in the show, but like also just like the character arc was so good and then it got so messed up. So I've been reading a lot of Jamie Brienne fanfic, specifically, okay. Listen, in terms of spoilers for the Game of Thrones thing, I'm going to be talking about, I mean, I guess I'm going to be talking about mostly, like, narrative and adaptation and stuff like that, so I hope that's not going to be too much of a spoiler for people, but I think Thrones is really a show that, I mean, at least when it's good, and at least the books, is something that you really consume for the storytelling and the characters, as opposed to just like, oh, plot. Like, for me, it's never something that I watched because it had some cool plot twists. Like, it's always something that I enjoyed because of the world building and the character building that it was doing and all of that, and that's kind of, I think, where the series fell really flat for me at the end. But obviously, if you're someone who hasn't watched or read any Game of Thrones content and you want to avoid all spoilers, like someone was mentioning in the chat, like, first of all, good luck to you, friend. Seriously, good luck, because it's really hard to avoid the kind of permeating discourse. But also, like, I mean, I think you might enjoy it more if you watch it a little bit outside of the hype and you get to, like, consume it, you know, and you get to, like, enjoy it as its own thing, as opposed to, like, it being a super hyped like moment in general culture that you're not really in sync with. But also it's just a lot of it is really good, just because Raya is mentioning in the chat that the showrunners have said that themes are for 8th grade book reports as opposed to being for narrative, and that's something that I will come back to. It is a really, really, really bad thing for somebody who writes stories for a living to say. It is very wrong. I mean, 8th grade book reports should have themes, but so should have other narratives. So should other narratives. There you go. That's a sentence. The other thing that I'm enjoying right now, Thomas says that he was spoiled for one of the many, many, many murders in one of the earlier seasons, so that's not exactly a spoiler. But he enjoys it every time he sees it, so... Yeah, I was spoiled for one of the big, big events. But when I say I was spoiled, I was like literally looking stuff up about the characters because I enjoy them. And because I was really getting into it and reading the books and really enjoying it. And then of course because I was watching the show, then reading the books, and obviously there was some more... At the point I started watching the show, I watched the whole show, I started reading the books, and I was obsessed, and I wanted to know some stuff. But at the time, I still had a couple books to go. And I got massively spoiled for a big thing. But I went looking for, like, stuff, right? Because I was obsessed. So, to me, that's not even that bad, because, like, that was my own damn fault. But... I don't think it massively deters from like the enjoyment of the thing necessarily. I think if the only way you can make people enjoy a plot point is by being surprising, then, if the mere fact of me knowing a thing that's gonna happen makes it not enjoyable, makes it not, work narratively, then you've just written it bad. Just write it better. And I know it's really easy to say from like a point of like not writing the thing, but just write it better. But yeah, so I was gonna give a couple of recommendations. So recommendations for specifically fanfic for Game of Thrones. If you follow K. Taylor Ray on Twitter, she has got a really, really, really good list of recommendations for fic. She recommends a lot of really, really awesome fanfic, so I'm just going to retweet that. I'm just going to retweet that into my timeline, so if you want to go and find that, then you can. I'm going to make a note to do that during the live stream or after, because... Kay has a lot of tweets, so I'm just gonna go and find the right one. But yeah, just off the top of my head, general blanket recommendation anyway. But she does have a lot of Game of Thrones. She does have like something like 10 or 12 like pretty good Jamie and Brienne fics. I would recommend Astolat. Astolat's a just blanket recommendation in general, and she writes a lot of Harry Potter fic and stuff like that as well if you're into your Harry Draco. But she does have 9 or 10 really good Jamie Brienne fics that I really enjoyed, so but those are in Kay's recommendations, so I will retweet that. And Patrick in chat mentions that recommending someone's recommendations is very meta. That is true. However, let me tell you, Kay reads a lot more fic than me. She remembers what she's read a lot better than me. She has like a really good like system, right? She has a really good system of, I guess, like archiving what she's read and what's it's like. And so, like, I don't know, I probably read like, 5 or 6 novels worth of Game of Thrones fanfic, but aside from the Astolat stuff, I'm like, I don't know who wrote it. I just clicked through an archive of our own, whatever. I'm just really bad at figuring out what it is that I've actually been through or not. But there is a lot of really cool, like, both in the world as well as like modern AU fanfic for Game of Thrones. So and hard agree with Sophie, who says Brienne is the best character in the entirety of Game of Thrones. That is so true. I do love her a lot. Raya says, interestingly, Brienne is probably a breakout character in Game of Thrones, but she's one of the more poorly adapted characters. And I mean, I would agree that there's plenty of things about her as a character that don't really, you know, like, it's not exactly the same and all of that. I just think it's really difficult to, you know, sometimes bad acting is saved by good writing and vice versa. Sometimes, you know, production design, you know, a lot of the times shows and movies are very uneven, and a portion of it that's really great, like, just elevates the rest of it. And in this case, like, not only is Gwendolyn Christie excellent, but also just her and Nikolai Coster-Waldau, like, he's just so good. He's just kind of perfect, and both of them are really a saving grace. I think, like, both of them, the relationship that they have, like, just, you know, the two of them, the chemistry that they've got as actors, and the kind of, like, friendship that they've got as well. Like, if you watch a lot of the, you know, kind of behind the scenes type of things, they just seems to have a really fun, like, friendship where they do, kind of do, you know, take the piss out of each other a little bit, which is quite nice, and works just really well. So, it's difficult to imagine, like, whether we would have loved her as much, you know, if it wasn't for Gwendolyn Christie, because she is really extraordinary. And also Mega Raptor is here. Hello, how are you? Hopefully the timing, by the way, is not too bad for people. I was gonna try and do, like, Friday later than this, and hopefully it wasn't gonna be, like, too bad of a time. But then I was very tired, and I couldn't really do two live stream, like, one after the other on Saturday. So I mean, this is a very nice kind of chill time to do something like this. So we managed to get this one off the ground, even though it was a little tricky to start with. I'm, by the way, just using a webcam and my Blue Yeti. So I hope it's alright. I mean, I know that in previous, I hope the audio is alright, because my poor desktop is quite loud and has quite a bit of there's quite a big of fan noise in there. So I hope it's okay. I'm looking at ways to kind of improve the setup if I continue doing live streams, but I think if the audio is fine, I might actually switch to this setup for doing the Stitch and Bitch and the BookTube SFF Awards live stream, just because the camera on my laptop, which I've been using because it's quieter than the desktop, the camera on the laptop is really bad, and last time I just had just quite a lot of light in my face, so it was very uncomfortable for me, and also I looked like completely washed out. Setup's pretty nice. The audio seems fine over here. That's really, I'm just a bit paranoid about the audio because I usually hear it kind of in conjunction with John's. If I do like if I put a bit of my audio next to his, it always sounds really pants because his setup is way more than this. So there you go. Oh, you guys can't hear the background noise, but that's perfect because it's quite I can put my hand on the side of the computer and like feel the vibrations, so I'm glad to hear that. Now, the other thing that I've been watching that I'm a little bit obsessed with, and that I wanted to talk about because I'm a little bit obsessed with it, is Leverage, which is a heist show that is nonsense, but delightful at the same time. And I, for a really, really long time, Leverage wasn't available to like actually watch in like streaming services or whatever. And I just really wanted to watch it because I kept hearing about it everywhere and seeing GIFs on Tumblr and stuff. And then I realized my best friend has the DVDs, so I borrowed them when I went. I borrowed the box set when I went to her place last weekend, and we did my hair. So there you go. I borrowed the box set, and now I have it. And also I've realized that it's on Amazon Prime. And like literally this is a show I looked for a while ago. Like I scoured the internet and it wasn't available to buy or rent. And now it's on Amazon Prime, which is great, except that the order of episodes is all messed up in Amazon Prime. So if you want to watch Leverage, I would highly recommend it. It's really fun. It's like basically kind of like Ocean's 11, but instead of like a big crew for one big job, it's like 5 people, and it's 5 people, all of whom pretty much used to be like actual criminal thieves, and they decide to go good, basically. Like they decide to become good guys and basically like do a Robin Hood sort of heist operation where they steal from bad guys to like give back to people, where there's not, you know, a setup from the law to you know, like say someone was I don't know, like there's an episode where a guy took the fall for a mobster, and the mobster was like, if you do this for me, I'll set your family up and I'll pay for their medical treatment, and then he doesn't, and so then they have to go steal money from the mob. All that kind of... I'm sure you can see the type of thing. Right. Leverage is a show that is just so good in terms of like the characters, because all of the characters are kind of like, you know, there's one guy who's like the mastermind, quote unquote, who brings everybody together, but all the other characters, they're basically like, they're people that are used to working on their own and don't want to work with other people, but then they all brought together and they like actually just really don't want to not work together anymore, because they have found that they really get along super well and they can do really great things together, and there's this just amazing kind of found family loveliness going on. It's really funny. I mean, it's really over the top, and also one of the characters is a hacker, and they are like hacking shit on flip phones. It's really like, I would really love to see like a show like that one made now, where they would do things with like smartphone and stuff, because yeah, it's a little bit adorable when you see the hacking, and the hacking is like, you know, retrieving data from a flip phone. It's just like very, very cute. Ed says he enjoyed Leverage. That sounds familiar. I don't know how it compares to Hustle, Patrick, because I haven't seen that, but if you enjoy it, then I might give it a look. Thank you to everyone saying my hair looks nice. This was very accidental. I just have a lot of like red dye in the bottom of I have a lot of red dye in my hair in the top bit, and then this bit doesn't have any red at all because it's bleached completely. So we bleached it and it looked basically like, you know, brown, orange, blonde. It was very flamey, and then we just put a bunch of purple on it, and it made this kind of gradation because of the base that it's on. But yeah, Leverage is really cute. I would recommend it. I can't wait to, like, I mean, I'm watching it and I'm trying not to, like, I'm trying not to go too fast through it, because there's 5 seasons and I'm at the kind of end of season 2 right now, and I just don't want to, like, just be done with it and have no more new leverage. But at the same time, I know that there is a strong fandom for this. There's a lot of like fanfic and fan art and stuff like that. Like, I decided that I wanted to watch it because I kept seeing little gift sets on Tumblr, and I really want to go and look for some of that stuff. There's really strong OT3 vibes between like 3 of the crew, and like, you know, this is something that's not in the show, but the creators of the show have said that they like consider it canon, like in their head basically. So, you know, like, the show makes it very, very clear that these 3 people like have a lot of chemistry and like absolutely adore each other. So I really, really want to get into some of that fic, because I also really like kind of almost like case fic, but in reverse. Like, heist fic is just great. It's just a great trope. So Patrick says Hustle, it sounds like the same genre as Leverage, or rather the other way around. Hustle was very well done. Plus it led to the fantastic Henderson Challenge Nerdcube special. I do not know what that means. You can tell me what that means. You can tell me what video that is in the chat. I will explain OT3 vibes. Now, OT3 is a fandom term that comes from the fandom term OTP, which is for one true pairing, and OT3 is for one true, like, I guess, threesome or foursome or whatever, when there's more than a pairing. So if, like, you've got any kind of a polyamorous relationship. So in Leverage, you've got 2 characters that I think become canonically like a romantic couple later in the show. I haven't got to it yet, but they are like flirting like crazy right now. So, and it's so cute. I'm so on board with it. But there's a 3rd member of the team that they are like, it's a 5-people team, but like you can, there's clearly like a, you know, there's the kind of the mastermind guy who brings everybody together. Like, one of those people that he brings in is someone that he has a previous like relationship with, that they've known each other for years, and so they are much closer together. And then there's 3 other people, and those 3 people are like you can really tell there's something, and I love them already. Like, we watched the pilot of the show, and I think I said, "Ooh, that's hot," like 5 times in the pilot of the show to my friend when we were watching it. And then I just like it, like, I mean, I like 10 minutes into the pilot of the show, I was like, no, I ship it. I'm fine. Yeah, please. Which, like, yeah. Again, this is something I knew about this show already because I'd seen a lot of stuff on Tumblr about it. So there you go. I wonder what the highest OT number has been. Yeah, probably all of the Avengers together. Is something that that exists in Avengers fandom. Let's just say it that way. I mean, I think it's probably not the highest number, right? Because there are fandoms that I'm not in that have bigger groups than that. I'm not going to speculate about those because I do not know. But yeah, you could just do whatever, really. So that's me. That's me. But I don't know. Yeah, people, let me know what you're watching or reading right now. I'm going to say that we're going to talk about Endgame, and so the Patreon voted segment, which is on endings specifically. So endings, especially endings of big series, and how to stick the landing, basically. So just having a general conversation about the ending, how Endgame ended, and how Game of Thrones ended. So if you're someone that doesn't want Game of Thrones spoilers, or Endgame spoilers, by the way, now's the time. I think I'm going to do about 10 minutes about this, because we've already kind of talked about Game of Thrones and what didn't work for me. But for me, I think the biggest thing about endings, and the biggest reasons that they work and they don't work, is the expectations that you've set up and how you pay those off, right? And I think one of the things that doesn't work at all about Game of Thrones is that the start of the show sets up a number of expectations about what the show is like, right? The show is very talky, it's kind of slow, it's got a million characters, no one is safe, they might all die. Everybody is very, very smart. Stuff happens that you don't see coming. All that kind of stuff that is like the setup of the original first couple of seasons, like that just doesn't happen in the ending of the show, like in the last couple of seasons, particularly in season 8. It just doesn't happen. Like it is less talky, it is less wordy than earlier seasons. Like that's been studied. People have done quantitative analysis of how many words are spoken in an episode of Thrones, and so we know that, you know, a lot more of the early seasons of the show is like people having long conversations about things and scheming together. So, you know, that's not what happens at the end of Game of Thrones. That's not what happened at the end of season 8. It's also a lot faster paced at the end of season 8, and I think it kind of blows right through fast paced into very, very rushed. The earlier bits of the show also are set up in, like, the earlier seasons of the show. The setup when you're watching is always that you've got a little bit of what's happening in Winterfell and a little bit of King's Landing and a little bit of Essos and a little bit of something else. Like, you go to 5 or 6 different places, and they've just really thrown that completely out in season 8, where it's like Winterfell, 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 King's Landing, King's Landing, King's Landing, and it's just like entire episodes. Like when we had a bottle episode that happened in one setting in the earlier seasons of the show, it was very, very, very effective because it was weird and didn't happen. And in the later seasons, it's just like, yeah, we've just made it really simple now. Patrick says season 1 has lots of Sean Bean saying bastards in a very northern accent. I'm not gonna attempt that, but yeah, yeah. I mean, I think just, yeah, the earlier seasons of the show just give you a much, much better idea of like what the world is like, and I think by the end of the show it's very much like, look, we have some really cool sets and costumes and stuff, and even then they just don't seem to care as much because I guess they don't. I mean, you'd think if they spend this much money making the show, they'd have like one person whose job it is to watch the episode like a hawk to check that there's not a water bottle on the show, like, or a Starbucks cup or whatever, you know. You'd think there would be some kind of QA, like, yeah, no. I'm not going to try and do a northern accent, but if you've not seen it before, there is a video on YouTube of Sophie Turner and Maisie Williams, who are good friends in real life, doing, I guess, like, carpool karaoke or something, but it's like a carpool karaoke, but instead of singing, they spend the entire ride, like, doing a northern accent and mimicking, like, Sean Bean's northern accent, and they are actually, both of them, unless I'm quite, they are both, like, British and English their mother tongue, so they do it much better than I would, but they spend the entire car ride, talking about doing the whole, like, Becky and her big butt meme, but in Sean Bean's accent, and it's hilarious. It's very funny. For something that's, like, very basic witch kind of, you know, humor, it's so funny. Like, yeah, I don't know. I really like the both of them, so, yeah. And then, yeah, then Endgame. People are talking about spoilers in the comments, and I think it's funny, like, it's another thing I think that's important to say about endings, because obviously the ending of Game of Thrones is something that most people have been disappointed with, but the ending of Endgame has been a lot more kind of like, not necessarily divisive, but it's been a lot more kind of, in terms of, it's been a lot more something that people either love or hate depending on what type of fandom they're in and how they like things, you know? And specifically, I mean, in terms of, like, if, you know, I'm in, like, Avengers fandom, as in, like, you know, transformative fandom, fanfic fandom, you know, yeah, I'm in the section of fandom that, you know, will pour over every single little thing that the characters have said and done in the movie, and what does that mean, but in terms of, like, specifically the character, what does that mean for their character arc and stuff like that. Like, you know, I mean, what does it mean that Steve Rogers used to live in Brooklyn at the period of time that he did in the 40s, because it was a very different type of neighborhood, and what does that mean, like, all that kind of, like, look into minute details to inform the character, like, which is very different than a type of fandom where you're going to maybe, like, know a lot of things that are mentioned in the canon and in, like, many different types of many different comics and stuff like that. Like, this iteration of Iron Man as this and that power or whatever, you know what I mean. So it's very often not, it's not always on those lines, but there's a lot of kind of, like, it's not always on those lines, but this idea of a transformative fandom that's all about, like, getting in the head of the characters and making up more stuff, versus a fandom that's more like, oh, I'm gonna collect all this knowledge and all this evidence and kind of, like, just know more stuff and own loads of, like, cool, you know, I'm gonna collect a lot of things. I'm going to, like, know about this one thing that the director said this one time at this one conference or whatever. Like, those types of fandom a lot of the times are, like, kind of separate ways that people interact with the media, and a lot of the time they are just separate sections of fandom. And when people say fandom as if it was one thing, it tends to drive me bonkers because fandom is so multifaceted. And so for something like Endgame, you have a lot of, like, Avengers fandom where there's a lot of people who would consider themselves Avengers fan and in Avengers fandom who think, yeah, this is excellent, this is exactly the way I wanted it to finish. Like, for me, when I watched it in the cinema, I thought, oh, this is great, this works really well, like, it's very effective and emotional. And in fact, we went to see it again recently and it was fairly effective again. But then if you're a person who likes to kind of sit down and think about the characters very deeply and make up more stuff, then yeah, the ending makes no sense. Especially, well, the time travel makes no sense, which, fair enough, time travel rarely makes sense because time travel's not possible, but the time travel makes so little sense in the way that it's explained in the movie. Like, there's a timeline and then it diverts, but then you have to put everything back and then it's going to be the same timeline, and that same timeline, if it's the same timeline that we had in all the Avengers movies where Peggy Carter told Steve Rogers that she lived her life and she had a husband and, you know, she's just sad that he didn't get to live his own life, and then that's the same timeline that, like, he went back in and then was, like, her husband all along and the father of her children all along, and that makes the Sharon thing real weird. It was already quite weird and also badly written. Like, it's just, I find it very interesting that, like, because of the kind of people that I follow, say on Twitter or on Tumblr or whatever, I find it very funny that, like, after Endgame, half of my timeline was like, no spoilers, but it was the best ever, they stuck the landing so much, it was amazing, and half of the timeline was like, what the actual F, like, this character wouldn't do this character wouldn't do that. Like, you know, in the heyday of Avengers transformative fandom, around the time of Avengers 1 and Winter Soldier, like, we spend a lot of time thinking about Natasha and Clint Barton, because Hawkeye, the recent Hawkeye comic book run is excellent, where, you know, you get to meet Clint and Pizza Dog and, like, just the entire, like, you know, local hero Clint Barton with his building and Kate and all of that good stuff. So you get to, you know, as a fandom, Avengers transformative fandom, we love Clint so much. But then, like, and we also love Natasha because she's so cool, and if you're watching these movies as a woman, like, the way that Natasha is portrayed in the early Avengers film, and in the early, like, films of the franchise, particularly in the Iron Man film, it's just like, whose neck can I wring? Because she was done such a terrible disservice the entire time, the way that they wrote her and people interacting with her. And yeah, so I've read a lot of fic about Natasha and Clint and their friendship, their relationship, whatever, and throughout the franchise, it just felt like it did not work at all. Like, what they tried to do with them, where they were like, you know, I'm glad that they didn't automatically decide that's a romantic relationship, because that's the only kind of relationship that men and women can have. But also at the same time, they gave Clint a secret family that was never mentioned before, and then that had this, like, really weird kind of Hulk thing, and then not, and then Endgame, yeah, and I gave a spoiler warning for 10 minutes, so I kind of want to I kind of don't want to talk about what happens with the Soul Stone, because that's a massive, you know, if anyone has, like, not seen that yet, you know, but that's just bad. Whenever they use the Soul Stone, it's bad. It would be cool if we could use the Soul Stone and not, like, end up with a shot of a dead women, like, lovingly shot for... It was a really, really long shot. Both times that the Soul Stone gets, like, summoned, you get these really long shots, and it's like, maybe don't focus that much on the dead lady. It's weird. Anyway. Yeah, so, I mean, these are fairly general thoughts, and I know that is maybe more of a, like, general nerding out thing than very specific thoughts. So I hope that people enjoy that. On Chrissy Road says, I'm kind of in the middle for Endgame. I liked it overall, but it didn't strike me as a masterpiece. I think it was a lot better than some of the other, like, team movies that we've had, but I just think that the ending, particularly the ending with Steve, like, it worked as a visual in the movie, but it made no sense at all, and then time travel made no sense, and Steve and time travel are things that I deeply care about, so I wanted it to be treated better than it was. And Patrick, I'm glad you enjoyed nerding out with Claire, but yeah, I think if we can move on to my next point, which was gonna be, let's see, next point was gonna be reading wrap-ups. So I've got, let's see, I've got my Goodreads up here, and I just want to tell you stuff that I've been reading this year. Now, stuff that I've been reading this year, a lot of it is for the BookTube SFF Awards, and a lot of it is for the Hugo Awards. So the BookTube SFF Awards is something that is happening on BookTube, as you can probably tell by the title. So it's an award for everyone on BookTube. So readers. Did I make that weird? Huh. No, there we go. Sorry, OBS did a funny thing. So the BookTube SFF Awards is an award for everybody on BookTube, the whole community. Everybody nominates and vote, can nominate and vote. And I'm one of the judges this year, so I'm judging the categories of Best Fantasy, Best Science Fiction, as well as Best Graphic Story and Best Short Work. So that's quite a bit of reading, and I've been reading a lot for that. There's some things that I had already read. There are some things that I had already read, so that was fine. So far, for graphic story, I read The Adventure Zone Volume 1, Aquacorn Cove, and I reread the first volume of Monstrous, just because I read that when it first came out, and I hadn't reread it since. So, you know, it's quite a complex story. I wanted to make sure that I remembered what's actually going on, so I'm gonna try and go back to Monsters Volume 2 and then Volume 3, which is the one that's nominated for the BookTube SFF Awards. I'm gonna try and read those relatively soon, so that I don't, you know, forget all over again, basically. And then for short story, I've done the same thing. I've started rereading the Binti series. I read the first Binti when it came out, and then I haven't kept up with the series. I need to read the end of it. So there is that. And then, yeah, I read Red Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is the first volume, and Volume 2, Grey Sister, is nominated. So I am currently in the middle of reading that right now. I'm also reading Cersei by Madeline Miller, and I read The Calculating Stars last year when it first came out, and I read Record of a Spaceborne Few by Becky Chambers earlier this year as well. So I'm kind of like, I'm doing fine in terms of when the voting is going to happen, when the live stream for the awards is going to happen, which we have picked a date, but I'm not sure if it's public yet, so I'm not going to say, but we have picked a date. So there we go. And yeah, then other things that I've read this year. I read In an Absent Dream by Shauna Maguire, which is the 4th volume in her Wayward Children series. This is about kids that have gone to magical secondary fantasy world. Like, basically they've had a portal fantasy adventure and then they've come back and they can't adjust to the real world again. It's really difficult for them. So basically these kids are, I'm sorry, is something broken? I'm logged out of my own YouTube. I don't actually know if y'all have been talking for this whole time and I've not seen you on the chat, so this is fun. Why you be like that, YouTube? Why you be like that? What? So I am logged in, but as soon as I try to go to my channel, it says I'm not logged in. And it can't log me in right now. Oh, there we go. And my 2 fucking live streams. Sorry. My 2 live streams. There we go. There we go. Perfect. Let me pop that out again. Okay, so what was I saying? So In an Absent Dream was really interesting for me. I really enjoyed the first book in that series, and then I've not been so keen on the next couple, but In an Absent Dream I really enjoyed. Like, this was a completely separate story. This was like the portal fantasy of one of the characters, you know, from later in the book. This was like what happened to her, and it was really great. Like, it's a shonen story, so it like really punches you in the feels, but I really enjoyed reading it. Absolutely. I read a bunch of other novellas this year. I've actually read a lot of really good novellas. I've read Alice Payne Arrives by Kate Hartfield, which is a time travel book. I'm just thinking now that I might be able to show you. My Goodreads page so you can see like what the books are. Let's see. There we go. I managed it. I did a thing. There you go. There we go. So this the book that I'm talking about. I'm trying to do this in an order that makes sense in my head, so it's not actually in order. So In an Absent Dream by Shauna McGuire is this one. And it's really, really, really cool. Really enjoyed it, but yeah, it's not a simple happy fantasy story, because that's just not how shonen rolls at all. Make sure that I have the chat as well. Then yeah, Alice Payne Arrives is a time travel story, and it's told in a bunch of different timelines. So one of them is like kind of it's 1788, one of them is in 1889, and then one of them is in the far future. And basically there's been like a time war to control time travel, and this like agent, this time traveling agent from the future might need the help of these two ladies from 1788 who are you know, much too smart and capable for what their time kind of allows them to do. I just want that to be full screen, I think. Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna move myself on this side. There we go. And then we've got a bunch of other really good novellas. Like I said, I reread Binti. I'm not gonna talk about it massively because I've definitely talked about it before on this channel. But Snowspelled by Stephanie Burgess was really cool. Like, this was a like a fantasy romance, and I didn't really I guess I didn't really know what to expect, and it was utterly delightful. It's set in this world where like the world building of the fantasy is like that women do all the politics and men do all the magic. So it's kind of like a fantasy of manners sort of setup, but instead of being the kind of traditional fantasy of manners thing where magic is a womanly art and women should do the magic, and the magic should be, you know, for small things and stuff. It's like it's expected to be completely the other way around, and women are politicians and they're expected to kind of like run the country. But this woman, our main character Cassandra, like she wants to do magic, and she wants to do magic. She's really gifted with it. And she basically like enrolls herself in like magic school and becomes a really powerful magician, and everybody around her, like, she does have support, but the world around her is kind of like, what's going on here? Like, what are you doing? And this particular story, Snowspelled, is a romance between her and her ex-boyfriend. So it's a get back together romance, and it's so cute. The characters are so well done. I would highly recommend it. I know there's more other novellas in this particular series, and I definitely want to go and read them. The problem is there is too much reading for awards, and so I can't, like, I'm trying really hard to get all my awards reading finished, so that I can then, you know, read non-award things. I've got a bunch of really exciting arcs as well for things, but I need to finish the awards reading first. I've got The Haunting of Tramcar 015 by P. Gillet Clark. This is just so great. Like, this author wrote, what was it called? There's a really, The Black God's Drums, which is nominated for a Hugo this year. I read that last year and it was excellent. I absolutely loved it. The Haunting of Tramcar 015 is, again, really, really excellent. It's amazing to me, like, the stuff that he manages to pack in such a small package, in such a small, like, story, because the novella is quite short. I mean, this is 144 pages, and there is, like, it's basically, it's a magical, it's a fantasy historical Cairo, so it's kind of like steampunk Egypt, but I mean, as you can see, there's like on the cover there's big buildings and tram cars and stuff, so it's you know, it's not so old fashioned, like it's going, you know, it's kind of like, it's as if this like steampunk thing had been going for a while, right? And this is just the whole like storytelling of this is amazing. Like, our protagonists are two detectives who work to solve magical crimes, and they get called because there is a haunting in a tram car, and it's obviously a bit more complicated than just a haunting in a tram car. And they like have to team up with these cool badass ladies, and they have this like lovely bickering friendship where one of them is like a more experienced cop and one of them is a bit of like a nerdy newcomer. But this kind of trope of like an experienced cop and a nerdy newcomer cop is often done, you know, with like one of them, usually like the new like naive cop, really being completely useless, whereas in this case it's like he's a nerd, he's an academic, he has all these like really precise academic knowledge, and it comes in really useful. He's actually really smart. He kind of gets it very quickly as they, you know, yes, he is naive, but as they kind of start, I just wanted so much more in that like setting. I would take many novels in this setting if P.J. Clark would write it, because it's chef's kiss is what I'm gonna say. I mean, he's written other stuff, and he's written short fiction and stuff like that. I'm gonna try and track some of that down. And again with Kelly Robson, who is an author who I knew about but I hadn't read before. God's Monsters and the Lucky Peach is another amazing time travel book, and again it's a novella. It's 233 pages. It's quite short, but it's really fun, and it really surprised me. I love the ending of this book. This is a novella that starts set in the far, far future, and our main character, who you can see on the cover, is a woman with like octopus legs, robot octopus legs, which like, that's already pretty cool to start with. But our protagonist is a conservationist basically, and is hired by this she's hired by this basically like they work for, it's this consortium that invented time travel, but they're working kind of on behalf of banks or with banks, and she just doesn't trust, you know, she's someone who has been in the conservation business for a really long time and just doesn't trust the people, you know, subsidizing all of it and the people providing the technology and the money, because she's like, what's their agenda? What is it that they actually want? Like, they're not wanting to rebuild stuff the way that I am. And so she still doesn't know their agenda, but she does have to go and time travel to, like, basically, does it say a date in here? 2000 BC. So from 2267 AD to 2000 BC, and they go and survey the Tigris and the Euphrates, and it's just like, it's so cool. There's like bits of it that are from the point of view of the people in that time, in like 2000 BC, and like how they view her and her spaceship and stuff. And, well, spaceship, time travel ship, I don't know. It's kind of like a little shuttle. So yeah, I mean, I've read so much really good short fiction this year. Like, In an Absent Dream was something that I really, really liked in a series I usually adore. Alice Bane Arrives, Snowspelled were both great find by new authors. God Monsters and Lucky Beach, same. Haunting of Time Car 015, I expected to love it. I adored it. Like, just completely spoiled for really, really great novellas at the moment. And then Paper Girls 3 and 4 is just a Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan, illustrated by Cliff Sheehan, with colors by Matt Wilson and letters by Jared Fletcher. That is a series that I've been following, that I really enjoy. I generally enjoy Brian K. Vaughan's writing and the stories that he decides to tell. This has time travel in it, okay? I like time travel. This is so weird. Like, I mean, the first volume, I was like, what's going on in this book? The second volume, I had to reread the first one and then read the second one. I was like, I'm still not sure what's going on in this book, but it seems cool. Like, by this point, I am starting to maybe, like, okay, by this point, when I reread books 1 through 4 continuously, I was like, I think I know what's going on in this book, but it took me a while, and I know that I'm going to, like, want to reread them or reread some, like, synopses before I go and read, like, further in the series, because it's so confusing. But it is, like, really fun. It is really fun, and I really enjoy it. Like, there's a lot of, like, you know, meeting your past self or your future possible self, and it's just like, yeah, it's really fun, but there is a lot of, like, weird language and phonetic things in it as well that are kind of a bit difficult to follow. So that would be that's the one thing that I would say about that. So I think I've talked a little bit about all of this stuff. Again, I don't want to talk too much about Red Sister or Record of a Spaceborne Few, Adventure Zone, Aquacorn Cove, Binti or Monstrous, because they are all things that I read for the BookTube SFF Awards, and I will talk about them in more detail when we come to the wrap-up live stream. This series of stuff up here from Stet by Sarah Gailey, A Witch's Guide to Escape, a practical compendium of portal fantasies by Alexi Harrow, The Secret Lives of the Nine Negro Teeth of George Washington. This is another by P. Gillet Clark, so Fenderson Gillet Clark. And yeah, The Rose McGregor, Drinking and Admiration Society by T. Kingfisher, and The Tale of the Three Beautiful Raptor Sisters and the Prince Who Was Made of Meat by Brooke Belander. If you've recognized any of these titles, that is because they are the finalists for short story for the Hugo Awards. And Abbott, which is written by Saladin Ahmed, and I will tell you about the illustrator in a second when it opens up. This is, illustrated by Sami Kivala, and the colors are by Jason Wordy. The colors were really cool in this book, by the way. And I actually really enjoyed it. Again, I mean, actually pretty much all of these I really enjoyed. It's not surprising that they're very good because they're the Hugo finalists, but I am planning a thing. Surprisingly, because I'm me and I'm obsessed with the bloody Hugo Awards, I'm planning a little Hugo series. I've been wanting to do something like this for years and years and years, and there's never enough, like, time. But this year, when the shortlist came out, I was really surprised that I had read most of the novellas already. I had read a bunch of the novels already. All of the novels were things I wanted to read, whereas in the past I've had a couple of the novels where I've been like, that's not really a thing that I fancy. This year, basically, between graphic work, short story, novelette, novella, and novel, like, all of it is stuff I want to read. Now, I have capital O opinions about this best series category, which basically boils down to there's too many books, it's too much to read, don't give me this much homework, basically. So I haven't read that many of the series already, and I'm not going to read the series to catch up in time for voting. I'm gonna try and read some of the YA, some of the young adults that is nominated for the Lodestar Award for the best YA book, but honestly I'm not sure how far I'm gonna get in that. My project that I've got right now is to read the short stories, which I've all read so far, read the graphic works, the short story, novelette, novella, novels, and then do a series of videos that's like a video per category that says, you know, here are the things that are nominated, here's what each thing is about and what I thought about it, and, you know, what's my favorite thing in the series. Look, I'm not going to like give you my Hugo ballot because that would be bad, right? That would be just a bit weird, and also people don't need to know that in so much detail. But I will say something like, you know, who do I think is probably gonna win and who would I like to win, and you know, I think that's kind of I mean, it will be fun to see if I've, you know, if I predicted it right or if I was completely wrong. But I didn't want to do a video that was like that for like every single category because, you know, I thought a whole predictions video would be a bit like maybe not, you know, it just seemed like it had less meat on its bones as an idea than actually doing reviews as well as talking about that stuff. And also there are categories where I don't really want to do predictions and say my favorite thing because some of the, you know, people are friends and some of the shows are some of the, you know, like fan casts or fanzines or whatever are done by friends, and so, you know, then it gets really like awkward, and it's also less useful for me to say I enjoy this podcast because my friend does it and I love hearing her voice. Like, that's just not helpful reviewing, if you know what I mean. Because it's not so applicable to everybody. So I decided to just kind of stick with the fiction categories where I felt relatively confident I could read the stuff. We'll see how it goes. As you can see, this is my 2019 reading challenge, and I've read 20 books out of 52, and literally five of those latest things are short stories, so they were on Goodreads, therefore they count. Because I would like to, first of all, it was great to like catch up with my Goodreads challenge, because when I finished reading these 5 short stories, I was on track on my Goodreads challenge for the first time all year. Now I'm back to being 1 book behind, but I'm reading a few different things at the minute. So, you know, I'm currently reading Grey Sister on audiobook and Cersei by Cersei on as a physical book. It is, if you've not seen this book, by the way, it is like, ooh, I think you can see the top of my pajamas there. This is like a YouTube secrets exposed. They're live streaming in their pajamas. Everybody who's live streaming is probably doing it in their pajamas, guys. Like, you put on a nice t-shirt, but then you wear your pajama bottoms because it's summer and it's really hot. It's not summer. Well, it's June. How is it already June? Ugh. Anyway, I wanted to show you Cersei by Madeline Miller in case you haven't seen it. This is the like the naked hardback. Obviously, it's got a jacket. It's got a dust jacket somewhere, but I don't have it right here. So this is probably like, this is one of the prettiest books that I own, and I'm obsessed with this. Like, I'm obsessed with this foiling. It's really beautiful. But yeah, I mean, that's what I've been reading this year. I tried to go really fast through that because I thought otherwise it would take a million years. But yeah, let me know what you guys have been reading and if you've been reading any of the same stuff that I've been reading. I've not seen comments. I've not seen anything in chat for a little while, and I don't know if it's because people are avidly listening and bookmarking things on Goodreads, or if it's because it's actually broken. So I'm going to try and see. Restore chat. There you go. I mean, yeah, I who knows with YouTube? Honestly, who knows? Let's see. Well, I can see that there's still people here, so if someone wants to try and say something in chat, so I can see if it's broken or not. And then if nothing happens, I can try and maybe I can look at it on my phone. If you're trying to say something on the chat and it's not showing up for whatever reason, do please tell me on like Twitter or something, because I'm not seeing anything at the moment. Let's see. Yeah, so I don't know. It doesn't look like there's anything from my side, but then, you know, YouTube is being funny and also not showing me actual footage of the live stream going on, so I don't know basically what's going on. Yeah, it's doing the thing. Okay. I don't know where my phone's at, so we're gonna have to go with this. Let's see. Right, so the next thing that I have on my list was to do Q&A with you guys. So if the chat doesn't work, that's going to be a little bit tricky. And yeah, the other thing apart from that, let's see. Let me go back to me. And then I can have a look at Twitter. I don't know at all what's going on. Yeah. Let me try it. I'm gonna try in a different browser and see if that changes anything, because maybe Chrome is being difficult. I don't know. I do not know at all what is going on. Okay, so I'm just having to re-sign into my account because okay, this is interesting. All right, cool. All right, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna go get my phone. Of that. It's a fucking day, isn't it? Alright.
Basically on tape until Google sorts its shit out.
Alright, folks, I'm going to sign out now because it's not working, and I think I've been talking into the void for like 20 minutes because that's when the chat kind of stopped working for me. So this is great. This is perfect. Well done, YouTube. I'm gonna sign off, and maybe you all will see this when, you know, whenever. Maybe it'll go to a VOD. Who knows? Let's do this again next month. It can't go as bad as this time, eh?